What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor at the Herald, joined as always by my co host, Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. And it is Club World Cup time. We said it was coming. It's finally arrived. We're well underway now, a few days into the tournament. Inter Miami has already broken the ice. They came out and played their first match last weekend against Ahly. Kind of an eventful match, even though it ended up in a scoreless draw. A lot of things happened, even though goals weren't one of them. But Miami, fortunately for them, finds itself in a four-way tie. It's a wide open group as Palmeiras and Porto, the other two teams in their group, also had a scoreless tie. So it's wide open for the taking with 2 games left for everybody. We'll hear from Oscar Ustari, goalkeeper for Inter Miami, who was basically the hero of the game, came up with a ton of big saves to preserve that clean sheet for both for their side. And Benja Cremaschi, Luis Suarez also will examine how the tournament's going on over the past few days, kind of who's taken the advantage so far, how are the MLS teams looking. We'll have plenty of reaction from those guys, and then we'll take a look ahead to Porto FC is the next opponent for Inter Miami, a big one, a big challenge for them in Atlanta. They won't be at home. Michelle will go over who's likely going to be available, who's not. We may have a return of one of the Beatles maybe coming back potentially. He might be healthy enough to play, but we'll talk a little bit about that, and then the off the field stuff too. How the Club World Cup has been executed so far as logistics. How's it working around the country? Or how are the fans? Are they getting crowds and so forth? We'll dive into all of that. But let's start with the home team and what they did and didn't do in that first game. What they didn't do was score, but what they did do was defend. And they got a point out of it. And now, like we said, it's wide open, Michelle.
Yeah, it's wide open. I mean, I think we said going into this that getting any result in this tournament, would be something that would be considered a success in some way for this team. I mean, this team was the underdog going into this group. All three teams that they're playing are ranked ahead of them, according to the world experts. And, I guess that's the idea of this tournament is you can say this team is better than that team, whatever on paper, but now they're playing each other. And so we're going to see how they really stack up. They, first of all, the biggest surprise going into that game, walking into that stadium, was the number of Egyptian fans. I think everybody was blown away by the passion and the number of the Al Ahly Egyptian fans. They outnumbered the Inter Miami fans, and so I think FIFA's idea going into this match is, oh, Messi's the hometown hero. Inter Miami, they're going to bring Miami fans. The Egyptian fans came out en masse. They came out in huge numbers. It was a sea of red. Everywhere you looked was a sea of red with some pink sprinkled in. So that was sort of a sign to me that going into this tournament, while there were a lot of skeptics, and there still are. I see in the media overseas, people are poo-pooing this tournament or whatever. I do think that there are communities to which this is a really big deal, a chance to see their team. And I'll talk about the Boca Juniors fans next when we get into that game. But there are some communities to which this tournament is a really big deal. It's something that's been anticipated. I had written that the people in Egypt, in Cairo, this was a huge deal. For months, they were talking about their opening game against Lionel Messi. So it was a really big deal for them. Their team was able to sign 5 or 6 reinforcements, which Inter Miami did not, which Javier Mascherano was not shy about. Not basically, he criticized management. He questioned management uh, of Inter Miami. He said, I said that we needed reinforcements. Now we have all these injuries. Now we're going to have to play shorthanded. And, I all I can do is coach the players that I'm given. So he definitely expressed frustration, I will say, frustration that the other teams did sign players and Inter Miami did not. All of that said, they end up coming out with a 0-0 draw. The first half, they did not look very good. They held on because of Ustadi. Ustadi had 6 saves in the first half. He was unbelievable, including a double save on a PK where he saves a point blank, right there, saves it, and then also saves the rebound, jumps up and scoops up the rebound. He had an amazing match. He was named man of the match. The Al Ahly goalkeeper also had a great match. He stopped a few chances from Lionel Messi. He stopped a very close one from Dario Allende. And then Maxi, in the final moments, Maxi Falcon had a chance to get the winner, and it was saved. So both goalkeepers really were the stars of the game. And even though it was 0-0, it was a tense game. It was entertaining. The Egyptian fans were a lot of fun. They had their pharaoh hats and they had their Egyptian flags and all their chants. And it really was a good kickoff. And as far as attendance, they were very worried, as we talked about last week, that they dropped the prices, or are there going to be giant sections of open seats? And there weren't. They had 61,000 in a stadium of 65,000. So it was virtually full. There were 4,000 extra seats, but it was not bad. It was not sold out, but 61,000 people to see Ahly, which around here is not a big name club, but of course in Egypt it is, as we saw with their turnout. I think the first game was a success for both teams, particularly for Inter Miami, to come out with a draw with a fan base that basically was rooting for the Egyptian team. I thought it was a pretty good game. The second half, they came out much better. Second half, they really linked up together. Javier Mascherano said that he told them at halftime to stop being afraid, drop whatever baggage you have, and don't be afraid to play. Let's play. And they did. They really played much freer in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every time you looked, Ustari was making a save. Like if you were even casually watching this match, every few minutes you'd look at the screen and it was like kick save or jumping up to deflect a set piece, something. Like he was so involved in the match, more, which you like the fact that he was making those saves, but you don't like the fact that he was so involved, because that means you're not getting anything on the other end. And Miami did have a few chances, but they really are lucky that they escaped this with a clean sheet on their end to salvage.
Yeah, and again, it was the counter attacks once again. In the first half, Egypt was getting loose. The Egyptian team was getting loose, Ahly, and the same thing as we've seen before. They catch them in a counterattack. The other team gets close to the goal, and in this case, Oscar Rustadi had an amazing game. He really did. He was named man of the match, and we talked to him afterwards.
No, no siento así. Sé que fue un gran partido del equipo, pero bueno. Mi gran partido fue el día que me tocó debutar con la camiseta de Independiente.
¿Cuántos estamos servidos para 10 bots en estos últimos tiempos?
Trabajo todos los días, trabajamos todos los días para que las cosas sucedan. Hoy por ahí las atajadas sirvieron para mantener vivo al equipo y saber que podemos hacer cosas, entonces, bueno, feliz por eso.
Primero que nada, feliz el partido. El partido donde quizás jugaron mejores ellos, segundo tiempo que jugaron mejores ustedes. ¿Qué sensaciones tienen de ese partido?
Terminar con las sensaciones esta de por ahí haber podido convertir y que creo que fuimos superiores, a priori es lo que pienso, ¿no es cierto? Te dejan buenas sensaciones. El rival que viene va a ser totalmente diferente, así que hay que descansar y pensar en lo que viene.
¿Qué crees que le pasó para dura y hasta que usted salga del retiro? ¿Qué significa hoy este momento para vos después de haber atravesado?
Acordarse de esas cosas y saber que hoy tengo la posibilidad de que siempre entendí que la revancha tenía que ser dentro de una cancha, así que estoy contento por eso.
Oscar, las atajadas más allá del penal, ¿cuál fue la más difícil? La que decís, bueno, esta estuvo bastante bien.
No sé, no te voy a decir, porque no me gusta hablar de mí. Entiendo que el equipo hizo un gran trabajo defensivamente, es lo que más me interesa, poder ayudar al equipo, trabajo todos los días para eso, pero bueno, al equipo no le hicieron goles, que eso es lo importante. Hay gente que nos ayuda muchísimo, que trabaja para nosotros, y me parece que el mérito también se lo tiene que llevar Mauro, los otros chicos que están detrás, ¿no es cierto? Y apoyando y confiando más que nada en uno. Y lo que me decís del arquero, del rival, increíble, increíble. Creo que, bueno, me tocó a mí, que me nombraron la figura del partido, pero él también tranquilamente podría haberse se lo llevado. Estaba bien, el campo de juego estaba bien, estaba rápido, así que bien.
De gol de vestuario de Argentina, ¿cuáles fueron las sensaciones de debutar en este torneo? ¿Y qué es lo que tienen que mejorar, que creen que tienen que mejorar a priori de cara a lo que viene?
Todo el tiempo tenemos que mejorar los futbolistas como equipo, somos un equipo muy joven, hoy por ahí hay gente que no lo ve, pero Inter y su historia, hace muy poquitos años que está en rodajes, y hoy está jugando un Mundial de Clubes. Entonces hay que valorar eso, más allá del resultado que se puede ganar o perder, valoremos que hoy Inter Miami hizo historia.
¿Qué te pareció la actuación de Maxi Falcón? Hoy lo buscaron muchas veces, siempre lo encontraron muy bien parado. Háblanos un poquito del trabajo de Maxi.
Sabemos que Maxi lo que da, que juega siempre con el corazón. Eso es importante porque es un contagio mutuo. Así que tanto Maxi como el resto de los jugadores sé que dieron todo lo que tenían que dar porque no es fácil debutar este tipo de eventos.
Oscar, recuerdo la jugada con Juanga, la Conca Champions. Me dijiste que en el mano a mano te ayudó tu equipo de trabajo. En la jugada del penal, ¿fue intuición? ¿Viste videos antes? ¿Cómo lo manejaste?
Solo te voy a responder que trabajamos a conciencia. Todo lo que se ve se trabaja a conciencia.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Okay, so Oscar Ustari, the ultimate team player, he just refused to talk about himself. He refuses to take praise. Even at, the man of the match little ceremony that they had in the press conference, he did not want to take any credit. He said, this is a team game. Thank goodness that I was able to work hard and help the team. He also praised the Ahly goalkeeper, Mohamed Al-Shanawi, saying that, I won the award, but he was equally deserving because he also had an outstanding game. I mean, this guy, Oscar Ustari, you're not going to find him talking about himself ever. He's a very selfless player, which is probably a good thing. Goalkeeper it's a unique position, and he really is very, very team oriented. He said right now they have a big rival coming up. They have to rest and get ready for the next opponent, which is Porto. Everybody that we spoke to after that game, by the way, said now we're going to play a European team. Now we're going to play Porto. So there is sort of still this hierarchy that, okay, they played the best African team, and that was great, and that's a very good team. But now they're playing a European team. So, they all have said that they're going to have to step up. He also said that to him, this is such a young team, Inter Miami, that has such a short history, and that, they take a lot of solace and a lot of pride in just the fact that they're in this tournament and they were able to compete, because this is, people forget, he said, a young team with very little history competing. They are competing against teams that are more than 100 years old, and they are in their 6th season. He was asked about Maxi Falcon, his performance. He said Maxi always plays with a lot of heart, and that is contagious, and that helps the whole team. And, basically that the team, he felt good. He felt good about the team, and now they're going forward to the next game.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare the staggering difference of history between Inter Miami with 6 years and then like yesterday, I'm sifting through some of the teams in the tournament, not even the biggest names, like even the one you covered playing against Boca Juniors, Benfica, has been around since 1904. And that team's never been, it's one of 3 teams in that league that's never been relegated. You know how consistent you have to be for 121 years never to be relegated?
121 years, never relegated. No, these clubs,
these are
the clubs in this tournament, minus the poor little Auckland City, the Kiwis.
Oh my God.
That's a semi-pro team. They got beat 10-0.
I was very happy for that entry fee paycheck after I saw that 10-0 score.
They got the 3.5 million, and they'll get to build their field for their school. But wow, and Bayern Munich, by the way, they no mercy. I mean, I had read in advance that they were going to play subs, that they were going to play a B team. They did not. Harry Kane was out there. Their stars were out there. They played to win. Bayern Munich played to win, and they did 10-0. But anyway, showing again that teams, once this came around, teams are taking it seriously. At the beginning, I just think the season is so crowded. The calendar is so crowded. I think there are a lot of skeptics, a lot of complaints about this tournament starting out. It's a FIFA created money grab, all these things, which, there's truth in a lot of that. But once the ball is kicked, these are highly competitive athletes. And whatever the background is, whatever complaints there were, now that they're here and the tournament is happening, they all want to win. They want to win. They want to win for pride. And of course, they want to win the big prize money. The winning team gets $125 million. And even Inter Miami, so far, they've had one tie, a 0-0 tie. They got $9.5 million as a participation fee, and then they get another $1 million for having a tie. So they already have $10 million.
Yeah.
They have $10 million already. But also, when you talk to these athletes and all the ones that I've spoken to so far in the games I've covered, there's a lot of pride on the line here. There's a lot of pride, and pride for your region, pride for the league that you play in, and pride for yourself.
Especially,
so once the ball is kicked, these guys are taking it serious.
Yeah, the region thing is interesting too. Like you said, like now they have the eye saying, here comes a European squad that we've got to deal with. So yeah, there's an awareness of which team is from where, the caliber that comes from said league, that league, or at least the perception that players have of that, and it's understandable.
Not only that, the Boca Juniors coach last night, I was a little surprised when he was asked about, because there was a questionable penalty that led to Di Maria's PK, kind of a soft penalty by Boca. And the Benfica coach was asked, the Boca coach was asked about the refereeing and the officiating in the game. And he said, well, the referees in this game, they were from Mexico and Arabia. And so, this tournament, there are a lot of things going on in this tournament. There are teams and referees from all over the world, and we have to just overcome these things. I'm not going to complain about the officiating, but the fact that he even mentioned which countries the referees were from was an indication to me that he doesn't think as highly, and there still is in soccer. As many advances as United States has made, MLS, whatever, Latin America, there still is this perception, and with reason. The history shows the European teams are considered the top tier, and then after that are maybe the best teams in Latin America, and then after that, Asia, Africa, and then United States and Central America and the Caribbean. There's still that perception that there is a hierarchy in this sport.
Yeah.
And that's why the Boca game, Boca Juniors, which is a team that I'm going to talk after about, just the fandom of that club is unbelievable, rivals anything in Europe. But still, for them playing against a team from Portugal, they were viewed as an underdog because they're from Argentina, from Latin America. And, the best Latin American players, where do they go? They go to Europe to play. Right. So still, the Latin American clubs still have a chip on their shoulder that the European clubs are still considered the cream of the crop. And in Latin America and the rest of the world is chopped liver.
Tier.
And so, second tier, third tier, fourth tier, whatever. So it's an interesting tournament to see
We're like fifth
how
tier
it's going to
over
play
here.
out.
We're like fifth tier over here, honestly. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, I think that's
no respect. They do not respect the American game.
We're not even single A baseball compared to. I mean, it's like high school ball compared to them, like the way they see it. But the competitiveness, what we're talking about, and then the perception of officiating. It's an interesting segue because the one of the negatives of that was the yellow cards, and you wrote about that, the way that Miami drew 4 of them, and how that kind of no one got kicked out. But it puts people on that threshold in this next match.
But not only that, I wrote about this yesterday. Not only that, they are listed. If you look at the standings right now, even though all 4 teams in Group A have 1 tie and 0 goals, Inter Miami is listed as 4th place. It's not in alphabetical order. It's listed in 4th place for a reason, because the tiebreaker, the group tiebreaker, after head-to-head goal differential and goals scored is fair play points, red cards and yellow cards. That is the tiebreaker. Right now, Inter Miami is in 4th place out of 4 teams because they got 4 yellow cards. Meanwhile, Palmeiras got 2, Porto got 2, Ahly got 1.
Right?
So the way the standings are right now, even though they have the same results and the same number of goals, Ahly is in first place. Ahly is in first place. Porto and Palmeiras are in 2nd and 3rd, and Inter Miami in 4th because of yellow cards. And if it's unlikely, but if Inter Miami ends up tied with another team to decide 2nd place for who advances, this could end up costing them a spot to advance.
Isn't it funny?
The yellow cards.
It's funny that we've been talking about this as maybe a potentially an MLS thing. Are they kind of like, picking on the superstars, or is it just the styles clash and all that? And now it's happening in this too.
Yep, they're hotheads. They really are. They're very passionate, but it could end up costing them. Luis Suarez got a yellow in the 92nd minute in extra time. Sergio Busquets had a yellow. Fede Redondo had a yellow. And surprise, surprise, Toto Aviles got a yellow. He has a propensity. He led the league. He led the league last year in yellow cards. It's something he said he was working on. Earlier this year, we spoke to him. He was working on the yellow card thing. He's the first one who got a yellow in this match. So this could end up biting them. It could. If they end up in a tie for second place and they have more yellows, they are going to end up not advancing because of it. So they're going to have to be careful. They're going to have to be very careful in these games going forward.
Well, let's hear from Benja Cremaschi about that and the game.
Perdón, se nos complicó. Ellos la verdad que tuvieron muchas oportunidades. Oscar Ustari la verdad que nos salvó en varias ocasiones, pero en el segundo tiempo salimos con un plan mejor, salimos a buscar el partido, tuvimos varias oportunidades ahí al final, un último empuje, pero bueno, no se dio.
¿Cuál estaba la clave para marcar en el segundo tiempo?
No, obviamente queríamos salir a buscar el partido. La verdad que Javi nos dijo que tengamos posiciones largas porque espacio había, pero bueno, así fue el segundo tiempo. La verdad que tuvimos bastante la pelota y bueno, tuvimos más ocasiones de gol.
Benja, estamos en vivo para... Perdón, estamos en vivo para TC Sports. Te quiero preguntar qué significa jugar este torneo donde parece un show de la NBA, representa el 1-1, con Leo Messi a la cabeza, con Ustari que atajó un penal. ¿Qué significa para ustedes el cargo del capitán? ¿Qué les dijo Leo Messi antes de arrancar este torneo?
Bueno, Leo dijo que salgamos, que no tengamos miedo de jugar, que tengamos la pelota, que seamos protagonistas en el juego. Y bueno, obviamente jugar en este torneo, ser parte de este torneo es un honor, un torneo único. Y bueno, tener a todos estos equipos, todas estas leyendas jugando, la verdad que es impresionante y bueno, como experiencia es única.
¿Cuán importante fue debutar en este caso, en este nuevo torneo? Ustedes sean los que abran el juego. ¿Fue fundamental o fue bastante complicado tener que abrir este tipo de torneos?
No, la verdad que para nosotros no da lo mismo si teníamos que abrir el juego o jugar más tarde. Nosotros estábamos enfocados en cómo hacíamos para sumar 3 puntos y bueno, la verdad que no se dio hoy, pero bueno, por lo menos nos vamos con un punto.
Benja, estamos en vivo para Día Sports. ¿Sentís que con el empate se les complica un poco la clasificación, sobre todo por el nivel de los rivales que vienen ahora?
Sí, bueno, sabíamos que el primer partido había que sumar 3 puntos, pero bueno, nos vamos con 1, por lo menos no vamos con 0. Sabemos que tenemos 2 equipos complicados, difíciles de enfrentar, pero bueno, ahora en la semana, ya que nos tranquilizamos, enfocamos en los próximos partidos, en el Porto, que es un equipo muy fuerte, así que nada, preparar y tratar de sumar lo más puntos posible.
Yeah, so Benja says that, the goal obviously was to try to get 3 points in this game. They know that they have 2 very tough games coming up, and I think that was the idea, was that maybe the Ahly game is the game that they felt they had the best chance on paper, because now they're facing a European team and they're facing Palmeiras, which has been a power in South America and Brazil and is playing very, very well and has some really big players. So I think that they thought this was a chance for them, and they did, they ended up with a 0-0 tie. So Benja says, look, we really wanted 3 points, but at least we came away with 1. At least we didn't end up coming away with 0. Now we have 2 very tough opponents coming up. He was asked, what did Leo... Everyone always wants to ask about Leo. Leo gets into every press conference. Yeah, he was asked, what did Leo tell the team before? What kind of pep talk did Leo give the team? He said that Leo told them not to be afraid. Don't be afraid to play, be protagonists, to sort of take control of the game and not to be afraid. He said that was Leo's message. He said he personally, that playing in this tournament is just an honor to be playing amongst these teams and amongst these legends. For someone like him, I mean, you're talking about a kid who's from Key Biscayne, who's, teenager kid, comes into this league and is now playing against some of the biggest names in the sport. So, he said that they wanted the 3 points. They thought that in the second half they created more scoring chances, they had more space, more possession, but they just fell a little short, and now they're going to go forward to the next game.
This kid was wearing a Mast Academy red jersey not that long ago, folks, and now look at where he's at. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. It's
at
not
one
even
point
what,
in the game,
3-4 years ago.
Yeah. You know, when you looked at this game, when Benha went in, you had Benha and Ian Frey and Noah Allen playing in this tournament on the field together. 3 academy players from Inter Miami, local kids, Coconut Creek, Pembroke Pines, Key Biscayne. 3 local kids who were playing on local youth clubs not that long ago and are now playing in the Club World Cup. Someone who's not that young playing in the Club World Cup is Luis Suarez.
Go from one to the other. Yep. Now the veteran.
From
Let's
one
hear from the
extreme
veteran.
to the other, to the veteran, experienced guy, 38 years old. Let's hear from him.
Bueno, obviamente que lo que queríamos era ganar, conseguir los 3 puntos después de un primer tiempo no tan bueno, tampoco tan malo, pero creo que corregimos algunas cosas en el segundo tiempo para poder llevarnos los 3 puntos. No se consiguió y que bueno, ahora toca descansar y pensar en el próximo rival.
Luis, los invita a creer, Luis.
No, sabemos que tenemos un club de jugar con nuestra gente, pero creo que lo que tenemos que hacer es seguir aprendiendo, seguir mejorando como equipo, que tenemos cosas que mejorar, cosas que aprender. Creo que nos tiene que servir para esta clase de partido, aparte de tomarlo serio como una competencia al cual nos genera mucha ilusión, nos tiene que servir para nosotros prepararnos de todo el año y bueno, después el apoyo que recibimos de la gente es increíble para nosotros.
Manuela Panamarca, ¿qué crees que le faltó para romper el 0 y después para los próximos que se vienen, cómo se preparan anímicamente?
Bueno, creemos que el arquero no atajara tanto, creo que fue la gran figura del partido junto con Oscar en el primer tiempo, pero bueno, para algo están los arqueros también que te consiguen puntos importantes y bueno, lo que hay que hacer es tratar de que la próxima marcar los goles, las situaciones que tenemos y a veces que nos cuesta mucho generar una ocasión, así que tratar de aprovecharla para ser más contundentes.
Luis, ¿cómo crees que respondió el resto del grupo que quizás hoy tenía la primera oportunidad en una plataforma como esta?
Creo que hoy es un día en el cual creo que no nos podemos reprochar nada y a veces que hay resultados, partidos que nos tenemos que reprochar o te vas con la sensación de que podés dar un poco más y no lo diste en la cancha, después te arrepentí después del partido, pero hoy es uno de esos días el cual yo por lo menos con el esfuerzo, con el trabajo que hizo el equipo, con el sacrificio creo que me voy satisfecho a pesar de no haber ganado.
Luis, de Argentina, ¿cuánto crees que en base a la situación de hoy y del partido que tuvieron hoy, del primer tiempo al segundo, cuánto crees que tiene que mejorar y qué fue lo positivo que tuvieron en el día de hoy?
Bueno, creo que lo positivo que creo que físicamente estuvimos a la altura de lo que te pide la competencia. Creo que el rival era muy fuerte físicamente también y creo que supimos competir. Después hay que prepararse para lo que viene, que es más difícil, más complicado. También sabemos las circunstancias que tiene y bueno, ¿después qué?
¿Cuánto crees que tiene que mejorar?
No, siempre hay cosas para mejorar. Uno con 38 años sigue intentando mejorar, sigue intentando aprender para siempre seguir creciendo y bueno, no creo que tengamos que mejorar mucho, sino que la próxima hacer un gol para darnos más tranquilidad.
All right, so Luis, the voice of experience here, the veteran voice, saying that, first half, not so bad, but not so good either. It was not a great first half. The second half, again, they all reiterated that they played better in the second half than the first. He talked about, someone asked him about, what a benefit it was to play in front of the home fans or something. And he said, really, at this point, what they're focusing on is trying to become better as a team, not only for this competition, but for the whole rest of the season, that they can use this tournament as a launching pad and as a learning experience for the rest of the season. He was asked about the Ahly keeper, and he said, I wish that he didn't have such a good game But, he and Oscar both, Ustadi, were two of the stars of the game. And, that's what goalkeepers are for. And they both had a fantastic game, made it very difficult. Going forward, he said, we need to be more clinical. We have to be more clinical in our finishing. He was asked what needs to improve. He said, I don't think we need to improve that much. I think what we need to do is be more clinical when we get scoring chances. He said that he did feel that the team stepped up physically, that it was a physically demanding game. He felt that they were able to compete physically with Ahly, and all they need to do now is to finish their chances going forward. And stressed again that what's coming up is tough with Porto coming up next.
Yeah, definitely a higher level of challenge waiting for Inter Miami at this point with what's coming up. And let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, Porto in Atlanta, for starters, they faced Atlanta United in games where it's a lopsided crowd there. But I'm sure this one might be a little more balanced considering it's Messi and Inter Miami in this stage right here. But what's to expect, Michelle, against a team with a lot of tradition? Another one.
Yes.
One of these heavyweights.
It's a team. Yeah, this team has won the Portuguese championship 30 times. Inter Miami has won 0 MLS titles. So, again, we're talking about historic teams versus a team with very little history, with very few trophies. Porto is a team that, like all these teams they're playing, have a lot of trophies in their region, in their country, in their league. Their goalkeeper, who is their captain and star, it was out injured for the first game, and their backup keeper actually had a huge game against Palmeiras. So it was again a game where the goalkeeper stepped up, just like the Inter Miami game, where both keepers stepped up. So in both games in Group A, the goalkeepers were kind of the stars of the game, and in Porto's place in particular because he was stepping in for the captain and did a great job. So that I'm sure gives them some confidence. It is a team that they did not have a good regular season. They did not have a good season this year. Porto did not have as good a season as usual. They finished outside of the top. They finished out of the top 2. And, they usually finish either win or finish second. They were a little bit lower on the table, third. So for them, this was considered sort of a bad season. The fans were not happy with the season this year. And this tournament for them, they're coming into this tournament, Porto, as sort of a redemption tour. They want to have a good result because their season was not up to expectations. So they are highly motivated to sort of prove that they're still one of the top teams in Portugal, even though their season in league was not as good this year as it's been. So, but their team is loaded with players who play in Europe, which we have already established is the top of the totem pole in this sport, our European leagues in the pecking order. So, their roster, player for player, their roster is very strong, but Miami does have Messi, Suarez, Busquets, and it looks like Jordi Alba will be available. They haven't said it yet, but he was at training yesterday. Jordi Alba did return to training yesterday after missing the Columbus game. He missed the Columbus game. He missed the opening game against Ahly with a hamstring injury. He was at training with the group. Yannick Bright was still to the side with David Ruiz. So I don't know. He's more questionable. Gonzalo Lujan, I didn't see at all. So Gonzalo Lujan may be a no. Yannick Bright may be a maybe. And Jordi Alba was out there, and I could see him potentially being on the game roster for the game, which would be huge.
Yeah, it would. I was about to say, because we're talking about clinically finishing chances and whatnot. He's a big time facilitator. He's a great creator of chances. We've seen it throughout the season. To have him back against this squad would be huge for sure.
Would be huge. And yeah, the Ahly coach mentioned in the game the other day that one of their focuses was to cut delivery off from Sergio Busquets. He said that they basically rendered Sergio Busquets, he didn't say invisible, but they really restricted him in that game. And they felt that they did a great job of focusing on Busi because he's the one who delivers the ball. Well, especially when Jordi's not there. So I think when you have Jordi and Busi both playing, then the ball can come from Sergio Busquets, but it could also come from the outside from Jordi Alba, who's been playing a much more attacking role, and he's known for those left-handed crosses. So I think that they're a much more difficult team to defend when you've got Jordi Alba in there and Sergio Busquets delivering the ball to Messi and Suarez and whoever else is in there. So Jordi Alba coming back would be a big plus for this team. Absolutely.
Definitely. I think on the offensive end, especially, we've seen it, he can create from the middle of the field on the run and make those amazing chances, setting up guys like Messi and Suarez, of course. We're this not running too long, but wanted to wrap it up, kind of talking a little bit about the tournament as a whole. Just some thoughts so far. I mean, the MLS teams not having great results, but they're not getting embarrassed.
Not embarrassing themselves. They're not
Right.
embarrassing themselves. And again, in this pecking order where people think that the MLS is terrible and that they're so far below the other teams, LAFC lost 2-0 to Chelsea, and it was 1-0 for quite some time. That is not a bad result. Seattle
And the
Sounders
got a
lost
goal.
2-1.
Right.
Yep, they got a goal against a Brazilian team, and Inter Miami tied 0-0 with the best team in Africa. So
go figure.
They proved
we're talking about Miami having the 0-0 and all lamenting all of that, but it's the best result so far for the MLS squads.
Of the MLS teams, it's the only one that didn't lose. And but they're not embarrassing themselves. They are, they show that they belong on the field. They're competing. I would say that if you would, have asked Don Garber, the commissioner, after 3 games, that MLS is doing what it's doing, I think they're doing fine. Of course, they would love a victory. One of these teams, an MLS team getting a victory would be huge. And we'll see what happens going forward. As far as the tournament as a whole, I can tell you that the security was very, very tight at Hard Rock Stadium. We talked about what happened with Copa America last summer with the Colombian and Argentine fans, barging through the gates, crashing through the gates, creating a very violent and dangerous situation. That was not possible. That is not going to be possible anymore here at Hard Rock Stadium because they have basically 3 rings of security set up. They have set up fencing around the entire stadium parking lot area perimeter, and everyone must go through, even on foot. If you're in a car, you have to have a parking pass and a ticket. If you are coming on foot, you have to stop at one of the entry points, checkpoints, and show your ticket in order to get into the grounds at all. Then you cross the parking lot area, which is very large. Then you go through a second checkpoint to get to the stadium gates. So you are literally going through 3 checkpoints to get into the stadium. Whereas last year it was 1 checkpoint. And that checkpoint, when everybody just barged in, the security was unable to control it. Now it is much more controlled. It's much more organized. And that's a good thing. That needed to be done. I know that it's kind of a pain for everybody, including those of us in the media coming in and the fans. You have to wait in some lines going through these security checkpoints. But I prefer to have that than the situation we had last year. So that's security. Yeah.
Let's not have people. Let's not have people crawling through air vents again, please.
Oh my God, no more crawling through air vents. Number 2, attendance. There was a lot of talk, and yes, there are going to be matches that don't have high-profile teams that are not going to sell well. They're not going to do well, but other matches did. The PSG match against Atletico Madrid at the Rose Bowl had 80,000 people were at the Rose Bowl for that match. Even though it was in LA, a lot of people overseas, again, were saying, because of what's happening with the riots and everything in LA, people aren't going to go. Well, 80,000 people showed up for that game. Here in Miami, we had 61,000 for the opening game, and then there were almost 56,000 for the Boca Juniors game, which was an incredible game yesterday against Benfica. That ended in a 2-2 tie. The atmosphere was incredible. I wrote about it. The Boca Juniors fans, if you guys have never seen them or you're not familiar, that fan base is unreal. They were more than 1,000 of them showed up on the beach in North Miami Beach on 80th Street and Collins. More than 1,000 people showed up in blue and gold, banging drums with steak. They had barbecues. They were singing their songs, chanting on the beach on Father's Day on Sunday. And that was just a preview, a pre-party for what went on at that stadium yesterday. 4 hours before the match, outside in the parking lot, they were chanting, they were singing. And then I am not exaggerating. I really am not exaggerating. I've covered many. I've been a sports writer 38 years, covered many matches and many games of different kinds at Hard Rock Stadium. The stadium literally shook. The stadium was shaking because the Boca Juniors fans were jumping up and down and singing from the before the opening whistle until the end. They never stopped. It was a really festive, wonderful atmosphere. And there have been some big crowds at other games too. So, I think that the fear that people won't show up or that people don't care, again, just like the players, I think now that the tournament is here, there are fan bases that care deeply and that are flying in for these games, and the atmosphere is going to be really fun. Yes, there will be some duds. There will be some games where there are going to be a lot of empty seats. It's going to look terrible, but there are going to be other games that are going to be very well attended. So Friday night here, Bayern Munich against Boca Juniors.
Huge
Okay,
game.
that's going to be a really big game. That's going to be a
Huge
really big
game.
game. The cheapest tickets were going for over $300. So,
Yeah.
so I think overall, you'd have to say that, did we need another soccer tournament in the world? No. Is the calendar too crowded? Yes. But now that it's here, I think it's
Game
going to
on.
be fun. And as it builds, I think people are going to pay attention.
Yeah, now that it's here, game on. And as of Wednesday morning that you're listening and watching us here on Inside Inter Miami, pretty big slate. Speaking of, I know you mentioned the Friday game, but some of the heavyweights, Man City playing on noon on Wednesday up in Philadelphia. We got Real Madrid right here in Miami on Wednesday, 3 p.m. against Al Hilal. A good matchup, Pachuca against Salzburg. And then, of course, Juventus was very similar to what you're talking about with Boca Juniors. I've seen people wearing Juventus jerseys all my life in Miami. So there's fans down here and there's fans coming to see that team 9 p.m. up in D.C. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You've got Inter Miami, of course, their match on Thursday, 3 o'clock in Atlanta against FC Porto. Up at MetLife right before that at noon is the other half of the bracket, Palmeiras and Ahly. So we'll get a little more clarity on who may advance after Thursday's matchups. But again, it keeps going from there. Seattle Sounders, their next game is against Atletico de Madrid, another great team from Spain, and on and on. PSG is playing that night against Botafogo. I'm telling you, it's a nonstop. If you're a fan of this is like a feast of great soccer coming up. You would, at least in names for sure. Hopefully the action on the field lives up. But we'll have it all.
By the way, and by the way, P.S. It's easy to forget with all this going. The Gold Cup is going on, and the USA beat Trinidad and Tobago 5-0. That little side note, a little P.S.
And it's worth mentioning just because I know in our recent episode we were
talked
very
about
critical
it last week. Yes.
about how bad they've been. That was a good victory to kind of start to maybe turn things around for them. So we'll see. We'll follow that as well. But we'll be back next week to let you know how Inter Miami is doing by that point in the Club World Cup, and we'll talk a little more about the tournament and any other happenings. I'm sure on and off the field, there's always news when you have so many great teams playing in one, around the country that way they are for the next few weeks. Until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching us. Remember YouTube, MiamiHerald.com, and follow all of Michelle's work there on the website. Until next week, enjoy the soccer, everybody.